Cases rising here in Atlanta. Health experts are now putting more work into warning Black women.
They sure are. Atlanta News First Madeline Montgomery spoke with survivors at Aid Atlanta about how they're breaking stigmas and trying to lower the numbers.
This wall is an artistic representation of people who have gotten HIV. Some of them have been diagnosed, some of them haven't, some of them have survived it, while others have passed. Today, the city of Atlanta is celebrating those who are still surviving their diagnosis, and they're also raising awareness.
I was in that building on the floor in fetal position, crying my eyeballs out when I got the news.
Theron Clark Stewart has been living with HIV since 2001.
I just wanted to live long enough to raise my children. Now they're grown, thriving adults, and it's a different world.
He's one of many being celebrated for National HIV Long-Term Survivors Day.
Antiretroviral medications has helped people to live longer. So really all people have to do, take their medication, get their treatment, go to their providers, and ensure that they can live longer lives.
But to get those life-saving medications, people have to get tested.
I think in terms of misconceptions, I think folks think that it's gone, particularly in Georgia and Atlanta. We have high incidence here.
Another misconception, who's likely to get HIV?
Especially African-American women, unfortunately, are the highest at risk. There's about 20-something% women infected by HIV in Georgia. Also in Atlanta. So they too are at risk.
That's where Aid Atlanta and the group Sisters with a Voice come in.
So we, our women, Sisters with a Voice, are working with the younger ladies, and they are teaching them the power of their yes and the power of their no.
Medical care, HIV prevention services, so that's HIV testing, STI screening, to make sure that people have access to the services that they need.
Aid Atlanta does free HIV testing. They have on average 100 people come through here a day. Reporting in Midtown, I'm Madeline Montgomery, Atlanta News First.